or it didn't exist. That's what rubbish, what nonsense. But nonetheless, if in fact I am right, and from the reports that are floating around, the crime is on the increase, then I think we've got to be careful as a nation, because it's always been safe, relatively safe, in Britain. Oh, it was different in the 1950s. When I was, actually in the late 1940s, when I was 6 or 7 or 8, particularly in the holidays, we would go out into the lanes and so on, and we were totally okay. Very few cases of child abuse and child interference. We could wander freely wherever we went and not have to worry. It's not like that today. But I still think that we are freer in this country than in many other countries to actually venture out into the street. And let's keep it that way. And that does require pretty firm law and order. It does require people who understand rule of law. And that's the one thing that seems to be disappearing from our scene at the moment, rule of law. The law says, don't get within 2 meters of anybody else, and particularly in places like the beach and beauty spots and parks. And I have to say that I haven't been to the beach, but my own experience of, and I was in St James's Park last Friday as well. I took a moment to just sit in the sun and enjoy the park, and everybody was being very sensible. Later that night, came reports from a jammed Soho again. People so packed that they can't possibly stay 1 meter or 2 meters away. And to hell with it, we're having fun. So who cares about that? Brighton Beach, just down the road from me, jam-packed, and people leaving all their litter and garbage behind. That's dreadful. But I don't give a damn. I'm really next to one another, and it can't happen to me. And anyway, the government isn't telling the truth. Well, governments are notorious for not telling the truth, but nonetheless, on this one, we get a spike after all these things happening. So those who really don't favour rule of law are bringing the whole of the United Kingdom, and for that matter Western civilization, into disrepute. We're being stupid. And when they worry and niggle and carry placards saying our freedoms are being taken away, yes, they are. But for the moment, that's rule of law. And if those of us who love freedom will actually make sure that we follow rule of law, then we will prevail. It's the idiots who decide that they will take the law into their own hands who are undermining society, not people like us. Ooh, aren't I just philosophizing this morning? Aren't I being prissy? And why not? It's early. I've been on the air for 18 minutes, would you believe, and I can't remember a word I've said so far, and it is 6:50, 10 minutes to the witching hour of 7. Now, I looked for some music this morning, because I never know what it sounds like, as you know, because I think that you and I should have joint endeavour on this, that we all listen to some of this stuff, which may be not played for the first time, but is rarely played. And I looked for something which said morning and joyous and so on and so forth. And one that came up was Jupiter's Smile. So shall we listen to Jupiter's Smile and see whether it makes us smile? Smile, smile, smile. Incidentally, you're listening to Rouser Radio out of Lewes, East Sussex, part of Mirador Television, miradortelevision.com, which is just as daft and esoteric as this radio show. But do grab it, because if you want to hear something that isn't of the norm, if you want to hear something that might giggle, or you want to hear something that will keep you engaged for 5 minutes and then you want to go away, tune into either Rouser Radio or Mirador Television, miradortelevision.com. Okay, here's Jupiter's Smile, and let's hope it's a nice smile. okay? Yeah, I quite like that. And why shouldn't we? Quite like that. It was a nice little number, Jupiter's Smile, it's called. And I really do think that some of the music is hit and miss, and that's why I ask you to share it. If I've got to put up with some of the pain, so should you, but also some of the joy. And finding little numbers like Jupiter's Smile makes it worthwhile. In my book it does, anyway. I mentioned I was down at the Priory yesterday, or did I mention that? The Priory in Lewes is now but a shell. But in the between 1079, only a few years after the invasion of the Normans at Hastings, at 1079, from 1079 to about 1540 or so, that priory dominated the skyline of Lewes. It dominated the town of Lewes. It was one of the biggest priories anywhere in the country, and it had dozens of smaller priories under its sway. And it built hundreds of churches, some of which are still extant. It did good works. It had an infirmary. It helped the town when things such as the plague raised its head, the bubonic plague. All in all, although it was subject to corruption, and indeed all wealthy things are, it did more good than harm. But when woman trouble again, when Henry VIII decided he wanted to get married and the Pope divorced, and the Pope said no, he set about dissembling much of the Roman Catholic religion in this country, and the dissolution of the monasteries, pulling them down, getting rid of the inmates whom he saw as potential enemies, and also raiding these institutions for the loot because they were all fairly wealthy. Such was the priory in Lewes, big, expansive, wealthy, influential. It had to go. But those foundations that were built in 1079 are a testament to the medieval bricklayers and builders and architects, that not only were they beautiful, but they were sturdy. Now, why were we down there? Because we're going to have a new look to Mirador television starting in September. And like anything else, you have to experiment a little bit. And in the summer, people's viewing habits change along with the fact that you can get outside and you can do all sorts of exciting things outside the home. In September, we start to come back in as the cool winds of winter, or certainly autumn, begin to flow over our homes, over our towns, over our cities. And so in September we will start a new look Mirador television, those of you who have tapped in already, and I hope that you'll join us. But we were making the pilot for a new program, and Annie Verrill, who is my co-host on this station, or is going to be, it's the technology, you see, it's the technology. I'm the one that can't overcome it, so sometimes we have to suffer. And we were down at the Priory, and we were busy making a pilot for Mirador television, and we had a lot of fun, because, she bosses me around in real life. I've never been... Even my late wife didn't have the license to boss me around as this woman does. My golly, I'll tell you, dusting around the corners, as my old grandma used to say, is nothing compared with what this woman does. but she's basically quite nice. So we had our little rows, and we're able to do it in front of, for the moment, a few thousand, but eventually a few hundreds of thousands, I hope. But she can be very, very funny. And even though I sometimes wince from some of the things that she says about me, and she means, but nonetheless, it is a bit of fun. And we're 26 minutes in, so I'm going to play one more track that I found this morning. Yes, it's something called Merry-Go-Round. Let's have a go at Merry-Go-Round. pleasant little number. Right, well, we've been on the air for 28 minutes and 52 seconds, 29, which means we're coming up to the end of our stint this morning. Thanks for being with us. It's Rouser Radio in Lewis, the United Kingdom. I'm Keith Hayes, and I hope that you'll join us on Mirador Television at some stage. If not, listen to this at any time of the day, because it's on Spreaker, and it's on Spotify, and it's on eHeart Radio, and all sorts of places you can tap in and take a listen for at least a few minutes. We describe everything that we do as being like Marmite. Some people hate us, some people love us, but nobody ever forgets us. Let's go out with my lovely, lovely Rose from the Second World War. Rose, Rose, I love you. Can't help it. Good morning.